Hello, everybody, and this is Mr. Storm, and this is the final week of the term. After this, we're going to dig into even more complicated concepts. Next term, we will focus on some cool stuff like how to control our programs a little bit more, how to, uh, you know, do loops and create new methods and all kinds of cool stuff. But for right now, I want to teach you one last little thing. And this is one of my favorite things because it allows us to very easily clean up a lot of our if-else statements in our program. Um, this is a concept called a switch. I'm going to teach you how to build a switch. Now, this isn't going to be as complicated as learning if-elses because you already understand the basic understanding of Boolean, or you already understand the basic Boolean stuff. So learning a switch is going to be super easy. So I'm going to make sure it's a console application. I'm going to call this switch Teacher Edition. Oh, yeah, I don't care. I don't want to save it. All right. Now, let's get into a switch. So what is a switch? What a switch does is it allows us to create an if-else statement, but instead of typing out a bunch of if-elses, it allows us to just pick which case this thing is and then do that. So I'll show you how this works. Let's say, let's start by console dot write line. And let's say, what is your favorite kind of movie? And I will give them some options. Console dot write line. I'll say one. Oh, one is sci-fi. Let's copy that. We'll say 2 is horror. And let's say 3 is, oh, romantic comedy. Now, down here, I'm going to do console.read line, right? I want to read that, but I want to store it in a variable. So let's create a variable up here. And we'll just make this a string variable. That's fine. Choice. And let's say choice equals console.readline. Okay. Now I have 3 options, or I have a couple of options. Well, let's see. When I run this program, let's show you what it looks like first, actually, and then we'll talk about what my user might do. Console read line. Oh, I already have a read line. It's going to wait. Never mind. I didn't need that. Let's run this and let's see what it looks like. And it's taken quite a bit to build. There we go. Okay, so I've given them some, a menu of some sort. What is your favorite kind of movie? Sci-fi, horror, or romantic comedy? Now there are a couple things that they might type here. They might type 1, or 2, or 3, or they might type sci-fi like that, or they might type sci-fi just like I did, or they might just type sci, or they might type horror, or they might type scary, or rom-com, or there's all kinds of variations of things they could type. And if we created an if-else statement for each of those different variations, it would be a problem. So instead, I want to actually just create a switch that handles all of this material. So, and actually what I want to do here is I'm going to do another console.write, and I'm going to say choice. Okay. So now I want to catch all of the different possibilities that they might put in. So I'm going to type the keyword switch, and this switch is going to pull in the choice variable. right? It's basically going to be a switch based on choice. Oh, alrighty. Now, the way a switch works is we type out a case for every possible option that they could enter, right? So we would have case, um, 1, right? And that's if they type 1. And what that would be is, we would say console dot write line pew pew pew, right? Now what we also need is a break. The break statement tells this switch that we're done. We've found the one we're looking for. So if they type 1, that means sci-fi. So we tell them pew 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 and then we break the program. But we need to handle other cases. So let's say case 2, and let's say console dot write line. Don't go in the basement, right? And break. Okay, so that'll break out of the switch. And let's say case 3, let's just go ahead and copy this so it's easier. Let's say case 3 is I love you. All right. So now we have our different choices. If they choose sci-fi, it's going to say pew pew pew. If it says horror, it says don't go in the basement. If it says romantic comedy, it's going to say I love you. All right. So let's actually put. Now, this is when it starts getting complicated because notice I have a bunch of new brackets here. So all the cases go inside. Oh, I forgot one thing. Default. We need the default case. Every switch has to have a default case, meaning it didn't hit any one of these 3. So we need something at the end that catches everything. And that's going to be console.writeLine I don't understand. Just basically an error message to the user. Okay, so now we have all of our switches or our cases, and they are inside of the switch, right? So we have our open bracket for the switch here and our closed bracket for the switch here, okay? Now, we want to make sure that our code, when it continues, it's after the switch statement. So I'm going to go after the switch statement and say console dot read line, just to make it wait for a second and get rid of these extra lines we don't need. So now our program should be, what's your favorite kind of movie? Gives them the options, they enter their option, and then it tells them something in the meantime. It tells them something after it's done. And I'm actually going to clear console.clear just so, the menu goes away and then our options pop up. So let's give that a shot. Okay, so what kind of movie? Let's say sci-fi. Pew, pew, pew. Perfect. All right, let's go back. Let's try horror. Don't go in the basement. Great, so that works. Let's try romantic comedy. I love you. I love you too. All right, now let's try something weird. I don't understand because it's not one of the 3 cases that we told it to pay attention to, right? So our program is working perfectly now. But remember when we said it could be some things, there could be other things in here that they just may not, they might type it a bunch of different ways. Well, instead of recreating these statements over and over again, what we could do is just inside, we just create a new case for each different possibility. 1.sci-fi, that's a possibility. We could do a case for just sci-fi. That's a possibility. A case for sci-fi. That's a possibility. And so on and so forth. And basically, any of these statements will run this code. We can do the same thing down here. Case, 2 dot horror case, horror case, scary, right? And we could do that for all of our cases so that we can try to catch any variation the user might put in, uppercase, lowercase, all that stuff, right? And the more you try to outsmart your customer or your user, the better their experience is going to be. If you give them a lot of room for error, then they're going to get less frustrated with your program. Think about all the people you know who only type lowercase. And if you ask them to type in some answers, they may just give you the lowercase. They may not capitalize things properly. You need to account for that, right? So let's run this program and see if it actually works with the cases that we've given it. So I'm going to type scary, and it still works. Don't go in the basement. Right? So switches are very powerful, right? You can use these for all different kinds of applications, and I guarantee you're really going to want to learn how to use a switch, especially for this final project this term, because you're going to need it. All right, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to leave you to it. I'm going to let you play around with switches and let you reflect on all the things you've learned this term. Next term, it's going to get a little harder, just a scotch more difficult, but not too much. You're going to be fine. Hopefully, you're having a good time. I'm having a good time. I will see you next term.